What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the tower. So today I'm going to be going over the bounce web strategy. And yeah, I am making a second video this week. I really wanted to get this video out. I already had my vault one ready, so I just decided to go with that as well. But yeah, I really want to show this strategy just to show how good it is. And like showing how to do it and like what are the requirements are and stuff like that. So yeah, let's get into it. So the original build was created by rageboulderfists on the Discord. And right now on the screen you're seeing his original showcase of the build, I guess you would say. So even though the build requires some really specific things to work correctly, the overall concept isn't too hard to understand. What you're trying to do is get as many projectiles on the screen and bouncing around to de-level the enemies as many times as you can before they finally reach the point where they can hit you. So I'll quickly show you the setup of this original build, and then I'll show you a little example right now just in tier 18. So for the actual requirements for this build, I would say the main thing is you need a decent chrono loop. I guess it would be more than decent. I would say level 9 would probably be the minimum. The main thing with this is being able to kill bosses with orbs. That's really the main thing you need from this. The speed reduction it gives also helps, since you do get extra speed reduction from the chrono loop levels. So yeah, that extra slow is really helpful in the strategy. But yeah, you pretty much just need bosses to be solved, mostly by orbs. It's okay if one gets by every once in a while, but for the most part, you want orbs to be able to deal with them. You also need to either disable free upgrades, or you can get the free upgrade mastery, and you need at least 3 slots to lock stuff. So you're going to want to lock attack range, knockback chance, and knockback force. And ideally, you're going to want to lock shockwave size, but if you find the correct shockwave size you want to use, you can just use the lab. You can kind of just level it with the lab here to set the max to exactly what you want. But that would only really work for like higher range builds, since you need to have this shockwave at a specific size. With the original build, it was around 82 meters. I don't know the exact number, but this is as close as I could get to 82. 2% knockback chance, and then the lowest knockback force. And then this is also just 2 levels, but I do have a vault upgrade, so I have slightly more than that. And then I'm also not sure exactly what shockwave size you use, but around 2 to 2.05 is pretty good. So those are the main changes that you actually need with this build. But another super important part is modules, and specifically your cannon substats. It's going to be much less effective if you don't have a bunch of projectile substats. So I just have been building my Astral Deliverance kind of for this build. But I think Death Penalty also works pretty well, since that ability is really good, and that could help in some cases. But this also gives the extra bounce shot range, which is nice. So yeah, you pretty much just drop all your damage substats for projectile ones. Since I do have another slot, I have the luxury of being able to use 1 damage substat, and for me, damage and meter is the best since I have Spotlight Plus. But yeah, the main actual projectile subs you want are attack speed, bounce shot targets, multi-shot chance, bounce shot range, and bounce shot chance. If I were to go in order and say which one's the most important, I would probably say multi-shot targets is first, then it would probably be bounce shot chance. Then it would probably be like bounce shot targets and bounce shot range, maybe. I would say probably bounce shot targets would be next. And then multi-shot chance and bounce shot range are probably about the same. And then maybe attack speed. But I don't think you get as many extra projectiles compared to some of these other substats. You would probably actually be fine to drop the bounce shot range, but it will help. Just depends kind of what range you're running. So for the module that actually makes this entire build work, we have Pulsar Harvester. The substats don't actually matter that much on this compared to what you would run with a regular build. So of course you still want enemy health level skip, and then that's really the main one. I have the free utility upgrade on here just to help upgrade the enemy health level skips faster. And then the package chance is just for the package mastery for the extra shards. But yeah, the only one you really need is the enemy health level skip. And then for the other 2 modules, there's not really any specific requirements, but this is what I've been running. I guess maybe the poison swap ones are going to be good here, since CC is really good for this build. And yeah, if you don't know what that is, crowd control, that's what it stands for. It's just any like stuns or slows that slow the enemies down. So yeah, I mean, that's the main build, but I will talk about a few other things that help a lot. Like I said, with the CC, we have the Poison Swamp. Getting good uptime on this with good stun labs is really good. It helps a lot. And then more chrono loop levels as well. This is really important for making it more effective. And yeah, these do help a ton. But I think with the right battle conditions in the tournament, even with just the base setup, it can still be more effective than just a full damage build. And then these 2 vault upgrades are also really good. I kind of talked about that in my vault video. But yeah, especially the bounce shot chance, that one's really good. This one's like makes a really big difference, I think. Multi-shot chance is also good. Not quite as good, though. It will still help, of course. So yeah, let me get into a run and quickly show you what the basic build looks like. You kind of already saw it in the first clip, but I'll explain it a little more when I'm in the run. And this is sort of what the original build looks like. There's a few little differences. I did drop the tier 16 instead of doing tier 18. Tier 17 and up have the tank ultimate, and that doesn't work with his exact original build. I think a few of the other differences are that there's not going to usually have the orb resistance, since there's a lot of extra battle conditions just in the regular tiers compared to the tournaments. So yeah, as you can see, there's tons of projectiles going everywhere. For this strategy, you do want to go to 1x speed, since you get a lot more projectiles. That's just going to be a lot more de-leveling. And yeah, the orb's main job is to kill any enemies that get too close, mainly the ranged enemies. Of course, they're not going to die in one hit here, but in a regular tournament without that battle condition, they would. So as you can see, my shockwave barely pushes the enemies. It really only pushes them to the edge of the range line, just so it doesn't kill the projectiles, and you get pretty much like 100% uptime on all of them. And then the knockback is also lowered to do the same thing pretty much. Having a shockwave size like this is actually perfect, since it can also hit raise, so you get the damage boost from the anti-cube portal. And yeah, I just set my damage limiter to the lowest setting, and then I turned off spotlight, so I'm not actually just instantly killing all the enemies. And yeah, if you can set up something like this and not take any extra damage from like bosses or ranged enemies, it should be working pretty well. I can de-level the raise a ton, because that's going to be your main threat. I'll also explain what makes this build so good. It's pretty much the fact that it completely changes the scaling of the enemies, since a regular build is based off the enemy's health scaling, which is super fast in tournaments. It's definitely a little bit higher for most other people, since I have a really high enemy health level skip when I do tournaments. So yeah, that's super fast scaling. But in this kind of build, the scaling is super slow, since it's all just based off how many D levels you can get from the Pulsar Harvester. So if the enemies gain like 5 levels of health, all you need is a few extra projectiles and to de-level them 5 more times, and then you're going to be back to that same point, instead of just being based off that super fast scaling of the enemy health. Because all you really have to do is de-level them to a point where you can kill them pretty easily, and yeah, you won't have a problem if you can do that. I'll show you my projectile stats, I guess, if you want. You might have already seen them, but yeah, I have 96 attack speed, and then 65% multi-shot chance. I do have one of the vault upgrades for this now, and then the multi-shot targets, and also 86 bounce shot chance. I think this one's really important to have a lot of, since you can bounce up to 12 times. It's really nice to get the extra bounces. With this percent bounce shot chance, it's around a 17% chance that your projectiles bounce 12 times, which is actually pretty good. It's going to keep going up more and more when you get this higher. And yeah, the bounce shot chance becomes more effective the closer you get it to 100% as well. Like, even just getting this to 90% raises the chance to bounce 12 times from 17 to around 28%. Huge increase just for increasing this by a little bit. I'll also go over what battle conditions are really bad for this strategy. The main one is fast ultimate. It's just super hard since the bosses are just so fast, they can just go right past your orbs pretty much. There's still a few things I want to try with that condition, but it's definitely way less effective even if you can make it work. I also didn't mention that I do have Death Ray off. It doesn't really matter here because of the battle condition, but if there's no condition for that in a tournament, you definitely want to have that off. Protector's ultimate is also pretty bad. It just makes it a lot harder. You still can make it work, but it's most of the time going to be less efficient. CL Plus does a great job at dealing with that, though. I actually have that at level 10 now, which means I can fully kill protectors, as long as they don't have any armor, which is nice. But the armor can mess everything up, since it can eat up some of your Chain Lightning Plus shots, and then that means you can't fully kill the protector with it. So I think Protector's ultimate is the most variable. Depending on the other battle conditions, it can completely change your build if you want to get it to work. But yeah, it just makes it a lot harder overall. And then a few other conditions that don't actually change your build, but just make it less effective. The main one is enemy attack speed. Since the rays charge a lot faster, you just don't get as much time to de-level them. So you're just going to get less waves with that. It still is pretty effective, though, if you have the right setup. I've still gotten it to work really well with the enemy attack speed condition. And then, like, Plasma Cannon BC can also be bad, of course, for either bosses or rays, if you have the mastery, the Plasma Cannon mastery. And then I also do want to talk about adjusting for the battle conditions. So the footage in the background here is from my tournament on Saturday. I'm just going to kind of show it as an example. And it also does show a boss. It gets de-leveled by around 500 million times its original health, which is kind of insane, actually. Kind of shows how strong crowd control is with this build. The boss also did like roll off elites a bunch and other enemies to kind of get pushed back more, which helped a lot. But I would say it's not that uncommon that like some rays get de-leveled this much. So I would say what I have is a pretty efficient version of the build. I'm pretty close to max CC, but there's probably multiple different things you could change to help a lot. And then there's also like the tier 3 bounce upgrade and tier 3 multi-shot. But yeah, with what I have and what I know now, I would say this is pretty efficient. But yeah, there's really not that much else other than that, and then I'm also missing the ancestral bounce shot substat. The reason I don't really want to share any extra details outside of the original build that rageboulderfists came up with is the fact that the battle conditions are pretty much going to make those change every time. This is probably one of the most battle condition dependent strategies in the game. And yeah, my build has pretty much completely changed throughout the last few tournaments. This was the 4th tournament I've had it actually work pretty well on. My first one that I did wasn't really that efficient since I didn't have my Astral Deliverance rerolled at all for bullets. So I kind of just used my death penalty and just went with that to see how I could go with that. Yeah, it definitely wasn't efficient until the tournament after that. So yeah, for every tournament, I kind of have to come up with a new way to make it work well. It's kind of hard to know what will actually work until you get into the run. But yeah, a few like basic adjustments are maybe like in the footage here, I do have Black Hole and Stunbot on, which are mainly to counter the Protector's ultimate. Even with the Chain Lightning plus 10, there's still a chance they can get too close and make you take a hit or two. If there's like too many enemies in front of it, that group of enemies would eat up all the bullets in Chain Lightning. But yeah, even with Black Hole and Stunbot on here, as you can see, I got it to work pretty efficiently. But yeah, I mean, some other examples of adjustments you can make would be maybe if there's like an orb battle condition, you could put your orbs up more maybe, past the range line. Might still kill too fast, but I mean, it doesn't instantly kill enemies, so it's definitely safer then. Same thing with Death Ray. If you have that battle condition, you could put Death Ray on, especially if you have the Mastery. That would help with Protector's ultimate a lot. But yeah, even then, sometimes you have to make sacrifices to make it actually work during the tournament. Main thing would be like with Protector's ultimate armor, you probably would need to use Death Ray and just lose the bullets from all those extra kills you're getting with the Death Ray. Yeah, it's just less efficient, but it can still work better than a fully damage-based build, even if you have it on like that. Plasma Cannon Boss's ultimate will also change stuff up since the bosses are going to be a lot more of a threat. Might need to adjust your orb positioning for that. But yeah, stuff like that, like the build's just going to completely change every tournament pretty much. So yeah, just once you figure out the battle conditions are and just try to figure out how you can make it work with those. Since I would say most of the time you're not going to get the original build to actually work. You need really easy battle conditions for that. I would say if you're kind of at the minimum requirements, you probably wouldn't want to try this strategy outside of super easy battle conditions. It'd be super hard to get it to work. I guess I also didn't mention like ranged ultimate. You kind of just need more knockback for that one. You pretty much just want it at a point where you're not dying to enemies, but you're still like keeping them like kind of at your range line where you're getting your maximum bullets. And then we also haven't had Tank's ultimate since I started working with this strategy. Since that kind of does the strategy for you, it's definitely going to be different, but there is some downtime of the ultimate if you have the battle condition reduction lab. So yeah, I'm not even sure what I'll do to make it work yet. Once we get a tournament like that, I'll come up with something and hopefully make it work. I have with everything except fast ultimate so far. But yeah, I just can't stress enough how much the battle conditions are going to actually change the build to make it effective at least. So yeah, that's the strategy. If you have any other questions, you can go ahead and leave those in the comments. And yeah, see ya.